In the dead silence of the night, a chilling scream echoed sharply from the abandoned gas station. Officer Xia Ran instinctively reached for his gun and cautiously approached the source of the horrifying sound. 3 bodies wrapped tightly in plastic lay scattered across the dimly lit storage room. A pungent smell of decay filled the air and made him choke instantly. Before he could fully react, rapid gunshots exploded from behind, shattering the station's window into countless shards of glass. Diving instinctively to the ground, Xia Ran narrowly avoided a hailstorm of bullets that tore apart the wooden shelves beside him. As adrenaline surged through his veins, he realized this isolated desert town, once untouched by violence for over a decade, had now erupted into deadly chaos overnight. With the approaching sandstorm cutting off all possible reinforcement, the officer understood he faced a ruthless gang determined to kill anyone who stood in their path. Alone, outnumbered, and with only limited ammunition left, Xia Ran prepared himself for a desperate fight to survive through this night of terror. A remote border town had remained murder-free for 14 years. Suddenly, 3 bodies were discovered in quick succession. Even the public toilet pit yielded buried treasures. Communications were completely cut off. Money lost its importance compared to survival. Everyone became trapped. A massive sandstorm was approaching rapidly. 43 ruthless bandits had converged from every direction in pursuit of hidden treasure. 3 local policemen found themselves desperately outgunned. They had 1 pistol against 88 firearms. Meanwhile, internal conflict also erupted among the bandits themselves. Surrounded on all sides and isolated from outside help, the 3 officers' lives hung by a thread. The question remained how Officer Zhou Jing could overcome this deadly predicament. The year was 1995. It was 1 year before China's nationwide gun ban went into full effect. That same year, Zhao Beishan, a notorious smuggler, faked his death and escaped prison. Members of his gang fought off police and managed to flee the scene. Taking advantage of nightfall, they quickly occupied a gas station near the town of Mangya. Employees inside were swiftly tied up with wire. Not long after an ambulance arrived, gangsters rushed their supposedly dead leader inside. A doctor worked frantically using a defibrillator to revive Zhao Beishan. Taking advantage of the distraction, a young gas station worker secretly loosened the wire around himself. Though a thug nicknamed Big Goldtooth noticed this act of defiance, he chose not to intervene. At last, Zhao Beishan's heartbeat returned. Seeing their boss resurrected from the brink of death, the gangsters promptly broke the doctor's neck and began clearing the scene. Witnessing this brutality, the young gas station worker bolted outside, desperately fleeing the area. But after only a few hundred meters, gunshots rang out and the young man collapsed dead. 15 hours later, a local police officer nicknamed Night Owl stopped by the station to refuel. Discovering the tanks empty, he reluctantly drove back to town. This town, Mangya, was a tiny settlement located near the intersection of 3 regions. Though rich in minerals and previously prosperous, Mangya had been thoroughly exploited and was now desolate. Every spring and summer, fierce sandstorms would sever roads and isolate Mangya from the outside world. The wealthy had long since moved away. Only the poorest original residents remained behind in this decaying place. Li Hong ran a small restaurant here. Her generosity and willingness to allow credit made her establishment popular among locals. Her business was doing fairly well. One day, the thug Big Goldtooth appeared at her restaurant. He insisted Li Hong cook and serve her ornamental fish. Li Hong politely suggested noodles instead, even offering extra meat. Without waiting for refusal, she quickly ducked into the kitchen. Big Goldtooth wasn't offended. He casually chatted with her from the bar counter, explaining he was actually a native of Mangya himself. Li Hong had run this place for 3 years, but never before encountered anyone who willingly returned to Mangya. Once someone escaped this ghost town, they never came back. She instinctively sensed something was off about Big Goldtooth. Meanwhile, Shu San, who operated a guest house nearby, overheard their conversation. He quickly intervened, suggesting his guest house would be a better accommodation. Big Goldtooth said nothing, just brutally elbowed Shu San, breaking his rib. Leaning closer to the injured man, he whispered quietly that Big Brother would arrive soon. Upon hearing these words, Shu San's face turned pale with fear. Ever since Big Goldtooth showed up, Li Hong sensed impending danger. That same night, she urged her younger sister to move immediately to Shenzhen. Knowing the girl would hesitate, leaving her behind, Li Hong persuaded her gently, saying she'd join her sister once she sold the restaurant. At last, her younger sister reluctantly agreed. Suddenly, Big Goldtooth interrupted their conversation and asked the young girl if she knew how her sister actually made a living. Li Hong quickly cut him off, saying her sister knew nothing, and begged him to leave. Ignoring her plea, he drew back the curtains. Spotting Shu San waiting nervously across the street, Big Goldtooth turned and coldly informed Li Hong that Big Brother would arrive in 30 minutes. Even when he arrived, he couldn't protect her. Big Goldtooth explained that the doctor had panicked during Zhao's fake death. The doctor administered double the dose of medication, which left Zhao unconscious despite being alive. The location of hidden loot was known only by Li Hong. Big Goldtooth offered to release her sister if Li Hong handed over the ledger. Li Hong was no fool. She doubted his promise of mercy. Pretending to sign an agreement, she suddenly grabbed her sister hostage and threatened Big Goldtooth instead. Cornered, Li Hong eventually surrendered the ledger. Surprisingly, Big Goldtooth kept his word. He signaled Shusan, allowing Li Hong's sister to leave safely. At the same time, Officer Xia Ran returned to the empty police station. He dropped instant noodles into a thermos bottle before unshackling 2 men arrested for fighting the previous day. Immediately, one suspect, Yang Guan, rushed toward another man, kicking him in anger. Yang accused the local Tibetan man of stealing his sheep but lacked evidence. Yang refused to leave without compensation. Officer Xia Ran, tired of the argument, handed over his own money to settle the dispute. The Tibetan man was astonished seeing a police officer lose money resolving a case. As the sandstorm approached, he decided the police station was the safest place to shelter. Meanwhile, the ambulance carrying Zhao Beishan finally arrived at Li Hong's restaurant. Li Hong served them carefully. Late that night, Officer Xia Ran suddenly awoke from a nightmare. He couldn't shake off his suspicion about the gas station earlier in the day. Without hesitation, he drove there again. At the station, the employees had never returned and the door remained unlocked. Xia Ran quickly searched the drawers, finding all the cash untouched. Clearly, this wasn't a simple robbery. Suddenly, loud banging came from the nearby warehouse. When Xia Ran opened the door, a wild dog rushed out. The overpowering stench of decay hit him next. Inside, 3 bodies wrapped in plastic were revealed. Horrified, Xia Ran hurried back to call for backup, but found the phone line cut. Returning to the police station, he was informed the town's communication tower was also sabotaged. Completely isolated, Xia Ran desperately sent a local civilian named Fan Ning to seek outside help from the next town. He knew clearly this murder case would require immediate reinforcement. Mangya hadn't seen murder in 14 years. Now suddenly, 3 murders occurred simultaneously. The victims were outsiders, suggesting this was a carefully planned cross-border crime. Fan Ning had already departed on horseback, hoping to get help in time. Meanwhile, Xia Ran drove through town using a loudspeaker to warn residents about staying indoors due to danger and the approaching sandstorm. As his announcement ended, a man suddenly stopped his car. This resident claimed someone had dug up his cellar last night and stolen his wife's buried jewelry. Surprisingly, other locations around town also revealed freshly dug holes, each marked with a red cloth. Xia Ran quickly realized the red markers must indicate hidden caches. He and colleagues rapidly uncovered a buried chest containing enormous amounts of cash and jewelry. The haul astonished all 3 officers. Counting the money, they estimated the amount at nearly 200,000 yuan. This was an enormous fortune back in the 1990s. Suspecting more chests existed, Xia Ran examined records of outsiders. He discovered a construction crew had frequently visited Mangya shortly before roads closed. The places marked were all sites previously excavated by that crew. Xia Ran finally understood. The crew members were actually bandits using construction as cover to hide stolen goods. Now the criminals returned during storm season to reclaim their hidden loot. At this time, Li Hong secretly approached the ambulance to sabotage it. Sensing someone close behind her, she quickly turned and stabbed backward with a knife. Big Goldtooth became furious after being wounded. He punched Li Hong hard in the face and dragged her by the hair, forcing her into the car. He brutally slammed the door onto her fingers. Big Goldtooth planned to take the treasure entirely for himself. He intended to force Li Hong to kill Zhao Beishan to permanently remove the threat. He promised Li Hong freedom if she completed the task. Big Goldtooth handed her a small bottle, instructing her to mix the contents into Zhao Beishan's IV drip precisely at 9 o'clock that night. Once completed, she was to switch on the restaurant's rooftop neon sign as a signal. However, before Zhao Beishan could be poisoned, they discovered one treasure chest had already been seized by the police. Big Goldtooth calmly explained that since their leader was still unconscious, the gang shouldn't panic. Mangya contained enough hidden money to allow everyone an early retirement. Now that complications had emerged, it would be better to immediately mark all hidden locations. If the police refrained from action, the bandits would quietly retrieve their treasure. But if police interfered, they'd unleash violence immediately. Mangya's tiny police force couldn't match the gang in either firepower or numbers. Once the treasure was collected, they could quickly depart before sandstorms trapped everyone. If delayed too long, escaping would become impossible, especially when outside reinforcements eventually arrived. A subordinate questioned what would become of their unconscious leader, Zhao Beishan. Big Goldtooth assured him he had arranged everything. Big Goldtooth specifically chose Li Hong to poison Zhao Beishan because Zhao was closely guarded by a fiercely loyal thug nicknamed Tung. Tung constantly remained awake guarding Zhao's door. Only Li Hong, who routinely changed Zhao's IV, could get close without raising suspicion. That night, Big Goldtooth watched closely as the restaurant's neon sign lit up. He confidently announced to his accomplice that Zhao Beishan was dead. He proudly revealed how cleverly he had forced Li Hong to eliminate their leader. He mentioned the poison needed 6 hours to take effect. By the time Tung realized anything suspicious, Zhao Beishan would already be dead. Just as Big Goldtooth finished speaking, a gangster named Grey Donkey suddenly shot and killed him. Grey Donkey refused to allow Big Goldtooth to monopolize the loot. The gang's accountant, observing quietly from the side, finally spoke up. He reminded Grey Donkey that only Big Goldtooth and Zhao Beishan knew the precise location of all treasure boxes. If Zhao failed to awaken, the money hidden inside the sheep pen would become their last hope. Grey Donkey reluctantly agreed, swearing he'd personally retrieve that last hidden cash while the accountant watched over Li Hong. Meanwhile, late that night, a local shepherd rushed into the police station. He urgently informed Officer Xia Ran that thieves had returned to his sheep pen. Several men were spotted sneaking around his property. Xia Ran quickly grabbed his only available firearm and took Fan Ning with him to investigate. They cautiously approached the sheep pen. Suddenly, the sound of horses echoed nearby. Fan Ning instinctively switched on his flashlight, drawing immediate gunfire. Shepherd Ma Xiaoji was shot from horseback. Fan Ning's position also came under heavy fire. Officer Xia Ran desperately returned fire, dragging Fan Ning toward cover. With bullets flying around him, Xia Ran ingeniously activated a flashlight and rolled it forward, distracting the attackers. Seizing the opportunity, he pulled Fan Ning to safety. Soon, Grey Donkey confidently entered the sheep pen, firing his weapon wildly. Unexpectedly, gunfire erupted again, and Grey Donkey collapsed dead. It turned out Zhao Beishan's remaining subordinates had followed Big Goldtooth's instructions before his death. They decided to eliminate Grey Donkey to secure the loot for themselves. After the gangsters fled, Xia Ran hurriedly checked on Ma Xiaoji. Sadly, Ma had suffered fatal gunshot wounds and died shortly after. With their police vehicle unusable, they couldn't leave until morning. Early next morning, officers Xia Ran and Fan Ning returned to the police station. The elderly policeman who stayed behind anxiously informed them unfamiliar men had entered Li Hong's restaurant. Hearing this, Xia Ran rushed there immediately. Inside the restaurant, bandits anxiously awaited news. Shusan soon returned, shaking his head, signaling they had found nothing overnight. Suddenly, Zhao Beishan's voice rang out clearly downstairs. The gangsters were stunned, realizing Li Hong might never have poisoned their leader at all. Zhao demanded his account ledger immediately. Li Hong panicked and rushed upstairs, urging the accountant to quickly surrender the ledger, but the frightened accountant stubbornly refused to hand it over. Before Li Hong could press further, Zhao impatiently shouted for her to return downstairs and pour him alcohol. Downstairs, Zhao calmly ate breakfast as Officer Xia Ran entered the restaurant. Xia Ran directly confronted Zhao Beishan, questioning his identity and purpose. Zhao leisurely replied that he was a local resident and true owner of the restaurant. He explained he'd returned home to inspect his business accounts. Zhao ordered Li Hong to fetch the ledger immediately. As Li Hong rushed back upstairs to retrieve it, Zhao calmly challenged Xia Ran's authority. Zhao confidently mocked Xia Ran, suggesting cooperation between police and townspeople was pure fantasy. Officer Xia Ran countered sharply, predicting the gang's internal conflict would soon destroy them. Zhao smirked, understanding Xia Ran's intentions, but retorted coldly. He declared traitors among police brought only chaos, while traitors among gangsters created productive competition. Zhao's words were indirectly aimed at his nervous subordinates upstairs. When Li Hong returned upstairs, the accountant finally surrendered the ledger, intimidated by Zhao's veiled threats. Upon receiving the ledger, Zhao's attitude abruptly turned cold. He mocked his subordinates' naivety, believing themselves clever enough to outsmart him. Officer Xia Ran realized his firearm was empty from previous firefights and prepared to discreetly leave. Zhao immediately blocked his path, openly mocking the officer's attempt to bluff without bullets. Before their confrontation escalated, Zhao's subordinates upstairs panicked. Anticipating Zhao's vengeance, they impulsively opened fire toward the dining area below. Zhao Beishan avoided injury, but Tung stealthily infiltrated upstairs to eliminate the traitors. Amidst chaos, Officer Xia Ran swiftly retreated to reload ammunition. Returning to the police station, Xia Ran discovered a terrible sight. Fan Ning had just arrived back from his earlier attempt to get outside help, but his lifeless body was tied to a horse. A walkie-talkie attached to Fan Ning suddenly crackled to life. Zhao Beishan's voice ominously informed Xia Ran that their business was unfinished. Zhao coldly ordered Xia Ran to control his subordinates and await his inevitable revenge. Xia Ran silently endured Zhao's threat, determined to end this deadly confrontation himself. After Shusan was killed by Tung, his sister finally recognized the true nature of the gang. She immediately went to Officer Xia Ran, providing valuable information. She revealed Zhao Beishan had brought more than 30 or 40 gangsters. A portion of them were stationed outside town, serving as lookouts. The gang also possessed a portable radio transmitter hidden inside Li Hong's restaurant. Meanwhile, Zhao had already captured and restrained the traitorous gangster nicknamed Big Head. Zhao viciously beat Big Head with a shoe, venting his rage. Big Head defiantly shouted that he never knew Zhao had hoarded such immense wealth. He questioned why the gang members risked their lives only for Zhao to monopolize all the profits. Big Head argued they chose banditry precisely to avoid being exploited as ordinary workers. Zhao Beishan detested such insubordination. Furious, he handed Li Hong a gun and coldly ordered her to shoot Big Head. Li Hong desperately wanted to end her own life instead. However, Zhao denied her this release. Zhao harshly insisted she execute Big Head immediately. Li Hong trembled, unable to pull the trigger. Impatient, Zhao signaled Tung upstairs. Without hesitation, Tung brutally shot and killed Big Head. Zhao subsequently burned the ledger, ensuring only he and Li Hong knew the exact locations of the hidden loot. Meanwhile, Xia Ran found military-grade weapons hidden in the town office. He quickly instructed Fan Ning on how to handle the weapons properly. As night fell, a violent sandstorm engulfed Mangya. Unstable electricity caused intermittent power outages throughout the town. Xia Ran seized this opportunity, deciding to infiltrate Li Hong's restaurant under cover of darkness. His goal was to locate the hidden radio transmitter and contact outside authorities. However, Xia Ran was not the only person taking advantage of the chaotic night. Two greedy townspeople sneaked into town, attempting to steal some of the buried money. The elderly policeman noticed their suspicious activity and tried to intervene. Unfortunately, the thieves violently attacked and subdued him. The commotion quickly attracted Zhao Beishan's attention. One thief named Liu Wu attempted to bluff Zhao with exaggerated flattery. Liu falsely claimed their leader was a gangster named Grey Donkey. Noticing Zhao's displeasure, Liu desperately switched tactics, suggesting Zhao must surely be the legendary gang accountant. Ironically, Liu's attempts at flattery severely backfired, enraging the actual accountant nearby. The accountant furiously shot and killed Liu immediately. Zhao angrily reprimanded the accountant, sarcastically questioning why his subordinate was suddenly making decisions without permission. Zhao redirected his fury toward the elderly policeman, savagely attacking him. Observing silently, the old policeman fearlessly mocked Zhao. He stated he despised two types of people most deeply. First were insecure individuals who defaced historical monuments by carving their own names. Such people desperately craved recognition and validation from others. Second were thieves who, despite possessing healthy bodies, still resorted to despicable crimes. Unfortunately, Zhao perfectly embodied both these qualities. The policeman's blunt remarks deeply wounded Zhao's pride. In a fit of rage, Zhao immediately executed the elderly policeman. Meanwhile, Officer Xia Ran successfully neutralized a guard and sneaked quietly into Li Hong's restaurant. He quickly found the radio and began urgently calling for assistance. Before he received any response, Li Hong suddenly appeared, discovering him. Surprisingly, Li Hong did not betray Xia Ran. She stood silently as Zhao's gangsters abruptly entered to search the room. Xia Ran swiftly hid beneath the bed, avoiding detection. Just as the gangsters prepared to leave, the radio suddenly crackled to life. Panicked, one gangster instinctively fired at the radio. Xia Ran instantly retaliated, shooting the gangster from beneath the bed. Hearing gunfire, additional gangsters stormed upstairs. But Xia Ran had already managed to escape over a wall. Despite his bravery, Xia Ran's efforts to alert the authorities had failed. Zhao realized their radio was destroyed and that one chest had already been lost. He angrily ordered all remaining subordinates to assemble immediately. He intended to launch a direct assault on the police station. However, his men stubbornly refused to move. None wanted to abandon their treasure to risk battling the police. The accountant hesitantly reminded Zhao that the approaching sandstorm posed a serious threat. He cautiously suggested focusing instead on rapidly retrieving all remaining hidden money. After speaking, the accountant immediately regretted voicing his opinion, fearing Zhao's wrath. Zhao, however, calmly took out a coin and proposed settling the dispute by tossing it. Heads meant following Zhao's plan, tails meant following the accountant's suggestion. Terrified, the accountant desperately knelt and covered the coin, unwilling to reveal the result. Zhao disdainfully walked away without another word. Beneath the accountant's trembling hand, the coin revealed tails. Nonetheless, the accountant lacked courage to defy Zhao further. Instead, he reluctantly ordered everyone to prepare immediately for attacking the police station. Unexpectedly, his subordinates revolted instead. They seized Li Hong as leverage and took their weapons upstairs, confronting Zhao directly. The accountant decided to withdraw from this conflict, taking several chests and fleeing. Unfortunately, Zhao's lighter had been left behind, drawing immediate suspicion. Tung violently attacked the accountant and retrieved the chests. Officer Xia Ran soon heard renewed gunfire erupting inside Li Hong's restaurant. Amidst the confusion, Li Hong secretly managed to take a walkie-talkie and inform Xia Ran of the gang's plans. She warned him Zhao intended to attack the police station. However, the gangsters no longer obeyed Zhao and had turned against each other. The recent gunfire indicated fierce internal fighting. Li Hong revealed the gangsters mistakenly believed police reinforcements were imminent. Suddenly, Li Hong's transmission was abruptly cut off. Immediately afterward, townspeople living upstairs rushed downstairs in panic. Officer Xia Ran was shocked to see Zhao calmly walking directly into the police station. Zhao casually announced his intention to surrender. Xia Ran's rage intensified knowing Zhao had killed his fellow officers. Xia Ran desperately wanted to shoot Zhao on the spot. Zhao, however, smugly reminded Xia Ran that as a policeman he could arrest criminals but never deliver justice himself. Unaware his hostage location had already been revealed, Zhao cunningly proposed a deal. He offered to reveal the hostages' whereabouts if Xia Ran helped eliminate the rebellious gangsters. Xia Ran kept his emotions hidden quietly, listening to Zhao's proposal without revealing what he already knew. Entrusting Zhao's custody to Fan Ning officer Xia Ran, resolutely prepared to rescue the hostages alone. The local Tibetan man, seeing Xia Ran's determination, also volunteered to help. Carefully preparing their weapons, the two men swiftly moved toward the ambulance. Officer Xia Ran instructed Li Hong via walkie-talkie to create a distraction. She bravely kicked open the ambulance door, causing nearby guards to separate. Xia Ran swiftly ambushed and eliminated one isolated guard. He freed the trapped hostages, silently signaling them to follow him away. However, Li Hong refused to leave immediately upon noticing her younger sister's bag in the guard's possession. Confronting the gangsters, Li Hong demanded answers about her sister's whereabouts. One gangster cruelly taunted Li Hong, revealing her sister had already been brutally murdered. Devastated, Li Hong quietly took out a grenade, throwing it into a nearby chest full of explosives. A deafening explosion erupted instantly, leveling the entire restaurant. Officer Xia Ran mistakenly assumed Zhao had caused the explosion and prepared to confront him directly. However, turning around, Xia Ran instead faced the vicious gangster Tung. Officer Xia Ran rushed back to the police station upon hearing gunfire. When he entered the building, he found Fan Ning critically wounded and leaning against the wall. Shortly after, Fan Ning died from his injuries. Now both of Xia Ran's fellow officers had fallen victim to the ruthless bandits. Meanwhile, Zhao Beishan returned to his men, intending to re-establish his authority. However, he soon discovered that the remaining gang members were merely hired mercenaries. They felt no personal loyalty towards him and cared only for immediate payment. Zhao realized bitterly that during his 3 years in prison, the world had changed dramatically. The old code of brotherhood and loyalty was no longer respected. Moments earlier, Zhao had been an authoritative leader, but now he appeared aged, defeated, and betrayed. At dawn, Officer Xia Ran saw the bandits' vehicles leaving Mangya and felt deep resentment. He refused to allow Zhao Beishan to escape freely with the stolen money, especially after losing both colleagues. Determined, Xia Ran quickly mounted his motorcycle and chased after the convoy. However, a massive sandstorm suddenly engulfed the region, blocking all visibility. The bandits' vehicles were forced to stop halfway. Searching desperately, Xia Ran soon realized Zhao Beishan had never even left town. Xia Ran immediately rushed back toward the police station. Upon arrival, he discovered Zhao Beishan and a large group of bandits waiting inside. Zhao's true motivation had never been the treasure. He simply craved dominance as a powerful gang leader. Having realized his subordinates were merely opportunistic mercenaries, Zhao cleverly encouraged them to leave town ahead of the storm. Zhao dramatically condemned his subordinates as treacherous and heartless. Unexpectedly, the Tibetan man bravely took advantage of the chaos and seized Tung as a hostage. To protect his leader, Tung reluctantly surrendered his weapon. Officer Xia Ran immediately stepped forward and handcuffed Tung. Amidst the confusion, Zhao aggressively shoved the Tibetan man downstairs. Thankfully, the Tibetan survived the fall without severe injury. Xia Ran engaged Zhao fiercely, fighting hand-to-hand. Meanwhile, Tung viciously wounded himself to slip free from the handcuffs, desperate to assist Zhao. However, the Tibetan quickly recovered and bravely restrained Tung again. Unfortunately, Tung seemed utterly immune to pain, ignoring even a stapler driven into his head. The brutal confrontation devolved into 2 simultaneous battles. Zhao Beishan, a ruthless veteran criminal, proved an extremely difficult opponent. Officer Xia Ran realized conventional fighting would fail against Zhao's superior experience. Seeing an opportunity, Xia Ran smashed a nearby window, causing violent sand to flood into the room. With visibility completely lost, both men fought blindly, relying solely on instinct. Suddenly, a gunshot echoed through the chaos. Zhao confidently assumed Tung had successfully shot Xia Ran. Dragging the exhausted officer toward the source, Zhao instead found the Tibetan man holding a smoking gun. Tung had been fatally shot. Zhao Beishan stared in disbelief, realizing he had lost his most loyal subordinate. With Tung dead, Zhao instantly lost all his remaining strength. Officer Xia Ran decisively handcuffed Zhao to an iron bar. Finally, the violent nightmare ended. Before becoming a policeman, Xia Ran had served in the military, experiencing brutal combat firsthand. During one mission, his entire platoon had been wiped out. Only Xia Ran had miraculously survived, earning him the nickname Night Owl. Locals jokingly called him an owl scavenging among the dead. This nickname seemed cruelly fitting now. From this point onward, the film's narrative transitioned into a reflective monologue summarizing this intense battle between police and bandits. Although in terms of setting and visual style, the story resembled classic Western films, its character portrayals reflected modern, gritty action dramas. Ultimately, as powerful storms swept through society, both good and evil individuals appeared equally fragile and insignificant. In the film's concluding narration, Officer Xia Ran reflects on his painful past experiences. The horrors he encountered in war had scarred him deeply. Losing his fellow officers in Mangya felt like reliving those traumatic battlefield memories. The nickname Night Owl seemed destined to follow him forever. Despite surviving each deadly encounter, he always felt immense guilt. Being the sole survivor brought neither pride nor comfort. Instead, it burdened him with endless questions and regrets. The tragic conflict in Mangya resembled his past wartime experience where countless lives were lost senselessly. Each victim, whether policeman, bandit, or innocent bystander, appeared equally vulnerable against overwhelming circumstances. The harsh desert environment amplified this sense of human fragility. The sandstorm symbolized a powerful force of fate, sweeping everyone away without discrimination. Both heroes and villains became indistinguishable as fragile human beings. Xia Ran understood deeply how insignificant personal strength or morality seemed when confronted by uncontrollable external forces. In the final scene, Xia Ran silently observed the aftermath. Mangya lay in ruins, devastated by violence, greed, and nature itself. The surviving townspeople were left shattered by trauma and loss. However, amidst the wreckage, Officer Xia Ran found a quiet sense of resolution. He accepted that while he couldn't control fate, he would always strive to uphold justice and compassion. Even in the harshest conditions, humanity's courage and dignity could shine through. As the sandstorm gradually subsided, Xia Ran felt a renewed determination. Although the nickname Night Owl might symbolize his sorrowful past, he now viewed it as a constant reminder of his duty. He resolved to continue protecting the weak, honoring the sacrifices made by his fallen comrades. No matter how fragile human lives appeared when faced with overwhelming odds, his responsibility remained unchanged. Thus, the film concludes emphasizing a deeply humanistic message. Under powerful external pressures, both good and evil can collapse equally swiftly. Yet true strength lies not in power or wealth, but in resilience, compassion, and unwavering moral courage. The deafening roar of the sandstorm finally faded, leaving Mangya in eerie silence. Officer Xia Ran stood exhausted amidst the scattered ruins of the police station. Zhao Beishan, restrained and broken, glared at him in bitter defeat. Xia Ran calmly wiped blood and sand from his face, knowing the nightmare had ended at last. The ruthless gang had fallen apart, consumed by greed and betrayal, but victory came at a painful cost. The memory of his fallen comrades haunted him still. Slowly, Xia Ran holstered his empty gun, stepping forward into the faint glow of dawn. Around him, shattered remnants of the violent night served as grim reminders of human fragility against overpowering forces. Yet despite the tragedy and loss, he felt renewed purpose rising within him. He knew clearly now that even when facing overwhelming darkness, a single act of courage could ignite hope. With determined eyes, Officer Xia Ran walked steadily toward the rising sun, resolved to carry on his fight for justice no matter the cost.